ओमज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नित्यानंद नमस्तुभ्यं प्रेमानंदप्रदायिने कलौ कल्मषनाशाय जानवापते नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामने गौरतुसे नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we welcome everyone for today's discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So we are discussing from chapter Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2 and verse number 62. This is one of the very important verse of Bhagavad Gita. ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसा संगस्ते सुपजायते संगात् संजायते काम कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते. So we already discussed this verse yesterday. Great detail. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa. So while contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment lust develops, and from lust anger arises. So the important, I'll just summarize what we discussed yesterday. So Dhyayato Vishayan, all the meditation upon sense objects happens. So, but the uh, means the meditation is upon the sense object, and so because of contemplation or meditation upon sense object, the attachment for the sense object also happens. But the principle behind that meditation and eventually when it leads towards attachment for sense object, the principle behind this meditation or attachment is the sense enjoyment, sense gratification which we get from that particular sense object. That particular sense object may be certain object, or maybe somebody, some person, some place or situation, or some conditions, anything. It may be anything. But generally, the understanding the people which the people have is that they when they get attached to certain object, person, or place or situation, so they take it as in a loving feeling, and the meditation also goes on like this. But the principle behind this meditation on upon Vishayan sense object is that one gets some kind of sense gratification. That's why this meditation, beginning with the contemplation or meditation, which leads to attachment, and finally it uh, manifests as a great desire, intense desire to get that, and that is what is kama. Sangat sanjayate kama. So basic principle is actually kama, lust. It is all revolving around lust, and lust means one's own sense enjoyment. One should understand this fact very clearly, that with any object, person, or situation, or place we come in contact, and if we become attached to, so it must be because it is because of our desire to get some enjoyment out of it. That enjoyment may be gross or subtle, it doesn't matter. But this is the basic principle, and that is what is known as kama or lust. And finally, nothing of this material world can satisfy us to the fullest extent. So everything of this material existence then eventually leads to krodha. Kamat krodho vijayate. So Lord Krishna is explaining the mechanism, you can say scientific mechanism of development of this attachment and lusty desires, and which ultimately leads a living entity towards destruction. And what does destruction means? Towards perpetual repetition of birth and death. So these two verses, verse number 62, beginning with Dhyayato Vishyan Pumsa, and the next verse, Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha, Buddhi Nashat Pranashyati. Pranashyati means the same thing, one falls down. Prabhupada writes, Pranashyati means one falls down. Pranashyati, Nashyati means destroyed, destruction. But living entity, the soul is never destroyed. So in that sense, Pranashyati means one falls down in the loop, eternal loop of birth and death, cycle of birth and death. This is the greatest loss of a living entity. But when the person gets the opportunity for sense enjoyment, at that time, because Maya is so powerful, illusion is so strong, one cannot understand this, and one just goes for it, uh, ignoring, neglecting all the spiritual instruction, and especially for those devotees who are not firmly fixed in the remembrance of Krishna. So they are likely to get entangled in this cycle, vicious cycle of dhyato vishyan pumsasangaste supajaya. So one must stop this at the stage of dhyato only, because as the meditation or contemplation goes on, then it will be very difficult for the person not to develop attachment. In other way, we can understand, if we have developed certain attachment for anything of this material world, anything, anybody, any ambition, any goals, then we should understand that we failed to control our mind in the stage of dhyato. So, in today's session, we'll discuss what does it mean dhyato contemplation, and how does a person goes on means in this process of contemplation meditation, which must lead one to develop attachment for those objects of the senses, sense gratification. Then the person practically at the stage of sangha, means attachment, the person practically becomes helpless. It is very difficult then. And when sangha becomes too strong, then it is kama, lust. It is almost impossible. Kama, krodha, vijaya. But the first stage, dhyayato, it is quite possible to be able to means come out of it, not just go ahead. The dhyayato happens in three stages, because dhyana or meditation happens in the mind, and mind has got three functions: thinking and feeling and willing. So thinking, at the stage of thinking, first of all, one gets the input from any of his senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. So if you allow any of your senses to get sense, to get sense of those sense objects, to get inputs from those sense objects, then eventually the result will be at the level of mind, the thinking will start. This is the first stage of dhyana, contemplation, thinking. Then one will start thinking about it. Just like, for example, Ajamila. Ajamila just saw from a distance that a prostitute was being embraced by a Shudra, a low class person. So there, Prabhupada, in that section of Ajamila, Prabhupada writes that anybody who embraces, kisses in public places, especially opposite genders, with the intention to enjoy. Uh, so such a person is a low class person, a low class human being, worst class human. So that is the and such a low class person is known as Shudra. So in Vedic culture, it's not at all. This is never allowed. No free mixing. So Ajamila was a Brahmana, and he saw this scene from a distance, and through eyes it entered, and then Dhyayato, this dhyana is started, Dhyayato, in the level of mind. So he started thinking about how they were enjoying each other and relishing so many things. So when the first stage thinking, so although because he was a Brahmana, so he tried his best to cut it at the level of dhyana, means at the level of thinking. But because he was not firmly situated in, in the at the lotus feet of Krishna, remembrance of Krishna's lotus feet, and he did not reveal also. So he couldn't get the guidance. Uh, he was just trying himself to get rid of this dhyana. So eventually, that dhyana contemplation at the level of thinking uh, forwarded to the next stage known as feeling. And then he started feeling or experiencing that what kind of enjoyment that person must be getting. So that is feeling, contemplation at the level of feeling. And then eventually willingness. If he developed the willingness that I must also get it, I must also get it. And when this feeling came, then immediately he did it. Uh, So thinking, feeling, and then willingness, thinking, feeling, and willing. So when the contemplation is there at the level of willingness, one is contemplating how to get it, then eventually he will get it. He will do it. And especially in modern days, it is quite very easy. It's very easy. It has become very easy. If somebody reaches up to the level of this willingness, if once dhyana, contemplation, meditation reaches to the third stage of this mind's function, willingness, then for him there is no difficulty. He can get it anywhere and everywhere. All opportunities are there. So as soon as one gets it, just like Ajamila got, he brought that prostitute. And in order to bring that prostitute, first of all, she had to drive away and his parents and his wife. So he forced them to go out. He practically uh, threw them away from his home, and then he brought that prostitute. So when he brought, then immediately this sangha attachment, he developed all attachment. This sangas tesu upajayate, it begins from the level of feeling. Uh, Dhyana at the level of contemplation, meditation begins from thinking about some object, somebody, and then it next stage it passes that one starts feeling a kind of happiness, sense enjoyment, comfort. Uh, इसको अलग अलग नाम से लोग बोल देते हैं बट इट इज वेरी क्लियर सुकून मिलता है या कंफर्ट मिलता है अच्छा लगता है मजा आता है ऐसे ऐसे सब बोले जाते हैं बट दिस इज ऑल व्हाट इज दिस इज डिजायर फॉर सेंस ग्रेटिफिकेशन सो इट रीचेस एट द लेवल ऑफ फीलिंग and then from there the attachment starts to generate and then feeling and then willingness finally and willingness when one actually uh, comes in contact with that objects of the senses then attachment must generate and then the person practically becomes helpless and once a person has reached to the level of developing attachment sangas means he has already crossed three stages uh, thinking feeling and willing and has reached to the stage of attachment then practically it becomes very difficult uh, to for him to come out. It is very difficult task, and because of the this benediction of modern technology and modern accessibility of sense gratification, uh, this contemplation Even at the stage, first stage, thinking stage, one just starts to think about objects of the senses because the objects of the senses are easily available. So one need not to even cross the stage of feeling and willing. He automatically gets it. And then the two stages immediately comes and immediately one lands up into the stage of attachment. And then Sangat Sanjayate Kama, then that attachment leads towards lust, lusty feelings, kama. So attachment means one hankers for it. And Sangat Sanjayate Kama means lust means third stage, which is here, third stage. It means that one cannot live without it. And then one starts feeling uh, he's missing in his life something. Just like Mahaprabhu said, Sunyayatam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahinam. In separation from Govinda, I'm feeling all vacant. Sunyayatam Jagat Sarvam. That is the perfect stage of FOMO, feeling uh, of FOMO, feeling of missing out something, fear of missing out, feeling of missing out, we can say. The Mahaprabhu is feeling of missing Krishna, separation from Krishna. So, Sangat from attachment, then this kind of kama, lust generates where a person practically becomes so immersed in thought of uh, this losing or missing something or somebody that he cannot live without it. It constantly haunts the person and he is practically dragged. At this stage, at the second stage of Sangha, attachment, he can at least try to come out of it, but he cannot, he becomes helpless. But at the stage of Kama, this Kama is so strong, lust, intense desire, that he feels like everything is void, null and void, that he is practically dragged. Even good instructions then cannot help such a person. And then Kama eventually leads to Krodha. Krodha means frustration. A big frustration is generated because the expectation with which he contemplates, the expectation which is generated after attached, one has felt attachment, and the amount of expectation one develops because of third stage karma, that is never fulfilled. That can never be fulfilled. So there must be frustration, krodha. uh, And then from krodha, next verse, krodhat bhavati sammoha. Moha is already there. Moha means illusion. Uh, Moha means illusion. And sammoha means samyak rupena. Complete illusion, complete delusion. He forgets everything. Complete delusion means even means he cannot understand at all that this is the function of Maya. That is the stage of sammoha. Moha means one is affected by illusion, but at least he understands, he knows that I'm affected by illusion, and this is illusory, not good for me. I must come out of it. But sammoha means he is so illusioned that he thinks illusion to be truth and truth to be illusion. That is the perfect stage of bewilderment. One becomes fully bewildered. And then that's why sammoha. So this krodhat bhavati sammoha. And sammohat vismriti vibhrama. Vismriti means remembrance. Pure knowledge, pure remembrance is lost. Knowledge, pure knowledge of transcendence, Bhagavad Gita is lost. And then his buddhi nasat, intelligence is lost, and buddhi nasat pranashyati. So this we'll discuss later on. But first, we'll discuss this. Dhyayato vishyan pumsah sangaste supajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodho vichayate. So this is in the sense Lord Krishna is speaking in this verse with respect to Vishayan, objects of the senses, how it materially affects a person, which leads lust for him. Lust is generated, and then uh, he is frustrated, and then delusion, then intelligence is lost, and then finally he is again thrown in the darkest region of hell, uh, known as material existence. And but if one can replace this Vishayan, Vishayan means wish means poison. These objects of the senses, sense objects are known as Vishayan, means it is poison. Uh, if one comes in contact with those sense objects, it must destroy one's spiritual progress. One's spiritual life is completely finished because of sense object or sense gratification. And out of all kinds of sense gratification, uh, the most dangerous kind of sense gratification is this attraction for opposite sex. Sex life is the most dangerous kind of sense gratification, most deadly poison, because it immediately creates a sense of false ego, which means restricts one to develop pure devotional and service attitude for Krishna. And then one is just thrown away and away from the Supreme Lord, the most deadly poison. And any other kind of Vishya are also considered to be means obstacle, great obstacle in progress in Krishna consciousness. So, but if somebody replaces this Vishayan instead of contemplating about sense objects, uh, if one can replace it with Krishna consciousness, Dhyayato Krishna, Dhyayato Krishnan Pumshaha. So, if one starts thinking about Krishna instead of thinking about sense object from where one can get sense enjoyment, one should think about Krishna from where one can get actual spiritual bliss, not sense enjoyment. So then that thinking will lead one to develop feelings, which is known as bhava, bhava for Krishna, feelings for Krishna, affection for some kind of affection, and some kind of one can means understand relationship with the Supreme Lord. That is thinking, feeling, and then willingness. One will develop this willingness factor that I must get shelter of lotus feet of Krishna. Nothing doing. I have wasted my many millions and trillions of birth. No more sense gratification in this birth. So when one reaches to this stage of no more material birth, no more sense gratification in this birth, that means he has full willingness for achieving Krishna consciousness. And these three things, thinking, then feeling, then willingness for Krishna, that leads one to develop from attachment for Krishna. And attachment means one feels dragged. One is practically dragged more and more towards Krishna naturally. He cannot just live without Krishna consciousness. And when the sangas te upajayate, sangas Krishna upajayate, and then sangha, such attachment for Krishna finally, when it becomes more thicker and thicker, so is this sangha for Krishna or attachment for Krishna ultimately generates a pure love for Krishna instead of kama. Here sangha sanjayate kama. When this object for meditation, contemplation is this object for sense enjoyment, then it eventually leads towards kama lust. But when it is replaced with Krishna consciousness, with Krishna, then it is prema. Then one develops prema, and at that stage of prema, he feels like sunyayitam jagat sarvam govinda virahena me. Moments, one moment, one feels like many years, and without Krishna consciousness, everything is sunya, zero. One feels like this. Uh, means Mahaprabhu said in Sixth Shastakam. So that is the perfect stage of developing Krishna consciousness. So one can use this verse in a positive sense. Rather, it is not possible to become free from Dhayatu Vishyan Pumsa until unless one has replaced Vishyan with Krishna consciousness. The only solution, only possible solution for us, because Dhyato is the mind must meditate. The thinking, feeling, willing, you cannot stop it. That's not possible. It is foolishness. Sometimes, when a person is too much contemplating about sense enjoyment and actually involving in sense gratification, because of which ultimately we studied Krodhat, frustration is generated, Kamat, Krodho Vijayate, frustration. So, because of great frustration, one just wants to get rid of it, get rid of all kinds of this sense enjoyments. For this, He restricts himself to come in contact with sense object, but that doesn't work because you can restrict, you can remove a sense object externally, but how can you remove it from dhyana, contemplation, thinking, feeling, willing must be there because if you develop attachment. So the only possible solution to get rid of this zone of false material attachment and this lusty material attachment is to replace those things with Krishna consciousness. So in the process of replacing those sense object with Krishna, one must be very careful not to come in contact by any means with especially those objects or person uh, for which we have developed attachment. And it will be very dangerous. Just like a person who is addicted for drinking or smoking, so it is not possible, even if he leaves everything and goes to Himalayas. So there also the meditation will go on. He will be forced to come down again and start drinking and smoking. So the only possible solution, best solution is that he must replace it with something superior. And the best superior thing is Krishna consciousness. So when this replacement is happening, when ultimately one has not become fully attached to Krishna consciousness, Krishna, for till that time at least, one must completely uh, restrain himself. One must completely means fully uh, keep himself away from those objects for which he had developed attachment. Uh, so this is very important. Otherwise, this process will not work because already we have developed attachment for certain sense object with a desire for sense enjoyment. So, but the desire for sense enjoyment is already there. So, if we again and again come in contact with such sense object, then this replacement of those sense objects from the heart with Krishna consciousness will not take place perfectly. And then again, the person is just dragged by those sense objects. That's why these four regulative principles have been set forth by our acharyas, which must be followed very strictly. Otherwise, the chanting and then the service to Krishna and then chanting of the holy name and all those devotional things which we are trying, which we are doing, will not be very effective. Very effective. It will be like uh, in one hand, one is trying to ignite the fire, and with other hand, one is pouring water on it. So how the process will work? It won't work. No, you are trying to clean the room, but suppose I tried. I'm cleaning the room from last almost. I took half an hour, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I very nicely cleaned everything. Uh, from each and every nook or corner. I took all the dust, and then eventually, when I'm just collecting it, and you just come and open the window and door, then what will happen? One, just one forceful wind is sufficient to destroy all your work of 30, 40 minutes of cleaning the room. Uh, so, how much careful one must be. So, one should not take it so easy. Maya is very powerful. when when we engage ourselves in this devotional service to Krishna, so we elevate our consciousness. But still, those dirty, lusty desires are present within the heart, which are just covered for the time being. But if we do not remain very careful in following strictly the rules and regulations given by our acharyas, then again the same danger will come. Again, will become uh, what we were before coming to bhakti. Just like Prabhupada said, don't become hippie again. By the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you have been elevated to a transcendental position. But don't forget, Maya is very powerful, and those nasty, lusty desires are there. So don't give a chance to become hippie again. So we should also think, like we should understand this. So one should strictly follow this. Okay. So this was we discussed something more. Tomorrow we'll read purport and complete it. One who is not Krishna conscious is subjected to material desires while contemplating the objects of the senses. The senses require real engagements, and if they are not engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. We already discussed this. In the material world, everyone, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of the other demigods in the heavenly planets, is subjected to the influence of sense objects, and the only method to get out of this puzzle of material existence is to become Krishna conscious. Lord Shiva was deep in meditation, but when Parvati agitated him for sense pleasure, he agreed to the proposal, and as a result, Kartikeya was born. When Haridas Thakur was a young devotee of the Lord, he was similarly allured by the incarnation of Mayadevi, but Haridas easily passed the test because of his unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. As illustrated in the above-mentioned verse of Sri Yamunacharya, since the devotee of the Lord shuns all material sense enjoyment due to his higher taste for spiritual enjoyment in the association of the Lord. That is the secret of success. One who is not therefore in Krishna consciousness, however powerful he may be, in controlling the senses by artificial repression is sure ultimately to fail, for the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his desires. So this is the power of this desire for sense enjoyment. Okay, thank you very much. We'll stop here. If you have any questions, you can ask. Hare Krishna.